Hello, everyone. If you guys don't know who I am, my name is Ray, and I am the owner of MochiCast. And I decided that I really like to talk for a long time, so I'm gonna do a podcast. I think currently my shop is in a pretty transitional period in its life, and I understand that a lot of people who are coming to check out my shop, especially after my designs have been doing really well on Instagram, might really have no idea what's going on. And I also kind of wanted to tell my story because I think I have a pretty interesting story. Nonetheless, it's something worth listening to. And I have a lot of really good business advice that I can give people. So hopefully throughout the course of this podcast series, I can make a bunch of episodes on how to run a business. Excuse me. On how to run a business, on how to produce products, all of these different things, and I am really excited to do so. So if you guys are interested in running a business, or if you're interested in producing your own products, or just growing your Instagram account, or if you're just interested in my story, it would mean a lot if you could stick around and hear what I have to say. Now, although this is a podcast, I'm going to have to make a few cuts just because I think I had COVID a few months ago. And ever since then, I've been having breath issues. So if you hear me taking a deep breath, or if you feel a cut, it's probably just because I talk too much and I had to stop and breathe. But moving on. Now, I do want to address that while I do have a nice camera, unfortunately, I can't find the lens for it. So I am filming this on my phone, and there's bound to be a little bit of a quality issue there, and I apologize. On the bright side, I do have a nice microphone, but I don't have any idea how to use it, so hopefully I'm using it correctly. My story begins pretty much right after I graduated college. In college, I had studied for art. I had a focus in ceramics, and ceramics is a lot of fun, and I was really interested in pursuing that further. But at the time that I graduated, I kind of realized that I don't have anything happening right now. And I didn't like feeling financially unstable, so I decided, why not start a business? I had taken a few e-commerce classes. That's not enough to make me an expert, but that is enough to make me think that I can do what I did. Throughout my childhood, I had always been kind of entrepreneuristic. I'm not sure what the word is, but I had always been trying to make little businesses and sell different things, and I learned a lot while doing those things. So I figured, let's try it online. Let's make an e-commerce website. And I had originally intended for MochiCast to be a bag shop for bag accessories for people who were interested in Lolita fashion. I hadn't really intended it to be anything bigger than that or anything different than that, but when I was trying to figure out what kind of products I wanted, I stumbled across so many cute pieces of clothing and all this different stuff. And having lived in Japan myself, I liked these kinds of fashions, so it quickly went from being just a bag store to being a clothing store. And I haven't stopped selling clothing since. The name MochiCast itself comes from this bread that I really liked in Japan. It's a bread made with, I'm assuming, some sort of rice flour or something like that. So it basically is really chewy and really soft and really, really delicious. And I don't think it's actually called MochiCast, because that would be mochi bread in Japanese. I don't think it's actually called that. I think I just called it that because that was really easy to say instead of okomepan. So, yeah, that's where I got the name, and I always had this kind of idea in the back of my head that maybe I'd start a bakery in the United States selling Japanese breads and things like that because they're just so good. But starting a bakery is a very hard task, so I sticked with the e-commerce. I basically grew my account little by little by uploading products to Instagram, and at the very, very beginning, I was dropshipping. There's a lot that I want to say on dropshipping. I have a lot of opinions about dropshipping, and I think that most of that is best saved for another episode of this. So if you guys have any specific questions about dropshipping, please ask me below. But I was dropshipping originally until I started seeing some more success, and I was able to purchase stock and keep it. Instead of drop shipping, I bought wholesale, right? But that happens a little bit later down in the story. At the beginning, I was drop shipping, and I think it took me about 4 or 5 months to actually make my first sale that wasn't to friends or family. And that was really exciting. I hadn't run any ads. I was just doing everything organically. And slowly but surely over time, I got to the point where I could make, I don't know the number of sales, but it was probably like $200 a month, maybe $300 a month. And it was pretty cool, especially with drop shipping, because when you drop ship, you have the money immediately from the customer to pay for the product. So I never had to worry about spending a lot of money up front until later. And my account grew really well and really quickly, and I'm not even really sure what I was doing right. I think, and I've been told, that the algorithm and like the way things were back then on Instagram were pretty much the ideal era for growing your account. I don't know if that's true. I mean, maybe there's going to be another ideal era, but I do know that I had quite a bit of ease in growing my account, and I think that I was, I don't know if I want to say lucky, but I think lucky might be the right word. I think between me getting about $200, $300 a month and me starting to make a lot more, not a lot happens. I do transition slowly into buying wholesale, so with the profits that I was making, I was investing that into buying more products, and I wasn't really spending it anywhere else, and I still didn't really have a savings. But at one point, a company reached out to me, which I have a lot of issues with this company, so maybe one day I'll make a video on exactly why they suck. But basically, they reached out to me and offered to run ads for like a percentage versus like a flat rate every month, which basically means they would take, I think it was 10% of my ad spend, and that would be their income or their salary for doing that work. And when I first started running ads, I think the amount that I was selling went up by like tenfold, and I needed to adjust to that new level of stuff and work really, really hard to get all that stuff shipped out. Like, it's not just, I mean, at this point I was selling wholesale stuff. So, I mean, I had to make sure that I had like my packaging was good. I had to make sure that cards and stickers and things like that were getting included with every order, and that things were getting shipped on time. And with all of my stock being located in China, there were, I mean, even if it frankly was in the US, there's always shipping issues, and I had to deal with a lot of shipping issues. I think at one point during that time, I had a shipping company lose like a few $1,000s worth of orders all at once, and they didn't do anything about it, so I had to resend all of those again. So that was pretty frustrating. And the next major milestone in my business was definitely the strawberry robe, and I think that that item itself deserves its own episode as well, but I will lightly touch on it here. I made a partnership with a factory, and we redesigned this robe that they basically already had for the most part. And they gave me exclusive right to sell, so I started selling it, and it did insanely well. So that was the only product that I can ever say was truly a success. I still have like a stack of robes right here underneath my desk. Maybe I'll do a giveaway in another episode about that. Maybe the one about the strawberry robe. After the success of the strawberry robe, I kind of, you know, a lot of people struggle when they have like a sudden flux in income and they start making a lot more money than they're used to. And I definitely don't think I made the best choices. I mean, I wasn't out spending things on like gambling or like cigarettes or something. That's not quite what I mean, but it's just about where you invest the money after you start making it and where it should go in your business to continue that success. I don't think I really had that down. And while I had some ideas, I just kind of believed that surely this success will not go away, right? And surely I will always be making this money, which was very naive of me to think, because now I am not making that money, but we'll get there. So yeah, this robe started selling really, really well. I think I produced about 2,000 of them, which is, to produce just 1,000, it was about, I believe, $17,000, not including shipping. So very expensive. And with this new amount of success, I very luckily at the age of, I believe, 23, was able to buy a house. And now, this goes back to my childhood, but the real reason and the only reason that I ever really wanted to branch out and do something different from like working a 9 to 5 and have my own business was because I had a very unstable childhood. And honestly, I was homeless at one point and I didn't want that to ever happen again. So I think it was like maybe some form of compensation for my childhood or something, but the true goal that I only ever had was to buy a house. And so, that explains why I worked hard towards that. Most people wait until they're older. I really just wanted to buy a house. And if I have any advice to give somebody who is in a similar situation, who is looking to buy a house, consider buying a smaller house. That's not to say that I bought some mansion. I definitely didn't. I would say that I probably bought, like, for my area, the equivalent of a lower middle class or middle class home. So it's not small, but it's by no means like gigantic. It's not like opulent or anything like that. It's a pretty normal house. But the reason I say consider buying something smaller is because what happens to me next really made me wish I had bought something smaller. The mortgage ends up being cheaper, and the rentability of smaller houses, especially in a city like mine where I live, it's a lot easier to rent out a smaller place or a cheaper place because then you can have the rent be cheaper. So that's just food for thought. But yeah, so I, throughout the entire process of getting the house, that was a nightmare in and of itself. It was very stressful, but I did it. I pulled through. I got the house, and ads were still running, and everything was great. But basically, the week before I got into my house, I ended up in the hospital with sepsis. This is something I've talked a little bit about here and there on my platform. I don't really talk about myself very much. I don't think I'm very good at sharing my feelings, and I don't think I'm very good at talking about my story, maybe because I don't think it's very interesting, but regardless of the reason, I ended up in the hospital with sepsis. So what had happened was I had a surgery on my legs for lipedema, which is a condition that I do have, and I might make another episode on that, on like all of my health problems. Lipedema, if you Google it, it's pretty gnarly looking. Mine is not that bad. But I will say that, like, all the symptoms, like really heaviness, like a lot of heaviness in the legs, and easily bruising, really painful legs. Like, my family's dog will sometimes jump on me, and if she, like, gets my stomach, it doesn't hurt at all. If she gets my arms, it doesn't hurt me at all. But if she scratches my legs, I, like, cry and weep for a while. It is extremely painful, and just things like that. Like, there's a lot of excess fat in that area. I have gained weight over the years through all the health complications that I've had and just kind of being depressed. I have gained some weight, which isn't good for lipedema, but even at this point, if I were to lose a considerable amount of weight, my legs probably wouldn't get much smaller, which is like the unfortunate truth of lipedema. So it's just a fat disorder. So I went in for a surgery for that, which is basically just liposuction. Like, that's really the only, I don't know if cure is the right word, but like really effective treatment is liposuction. So of course insurance doesn't cover that, and I paid for that out of pocket, which, again, it goes back to like making the correct financial decisions. While it is something that spared me a lot of pain, and I am glad that I did it, perhaps I could have waited. But anyways, so I went in for that surgery, and I was in Florida, and I stayed in Florida for like 2 days, and I was on very heavy painkillers. And the night that I got back to my city, which is like, I don't know, about 9 hours of flying, with layover time included. By the time I got back to my city, I was feeling really weak, and I went to bed, and I went into shock. And long story short, it turns out that I had a UTI that I couldn't feel at all because of the painkillers. And it pushed me to the point where my kidneys were infected. And it was like just before that point where your blood gets infected, according to the ER doctor at least. So my blood, I mean, I had to like have, if you guys are a little squeamish, maybe skip a bit ahead, because I'm going to talk a little bit about hospital stuff. The doctors had to take like vials and vials of my blood from each arm in a very particular and special way to ensure that my blood wasn't infected. And they had to like triple and quadruple check it because apparently those tests are pretty easy to mess up. So I was in the ER for a long time. And I was very lucky that I got to go home the next day. And I was on and would continue to be on some of the most intense antibiotics that like you can get for months. And my UTIs, like they were recurrent, they never stopped coming back for months. And even to this day, I still don't know if they come back and my body's used to it now or what, because sometimes I feel like I have one, but then it goes away. So I developed all of those like recurrent infections, and my immune system has since been very compromised. So that sucked. That really sucked. And due to a lot of medical bills and like just trying to take care of myself, I wasn't able to work a lot and I had to stop running ads. I couldn't handle the amount of orders I was getting, and I needed to put a lot of the money that I had saved towards these bills that I was racking up on like prescription drugs. I mean, I live in the United States, so that's not really a big shocker to anybody there. And I think about 8 or 9 months passed from the time that I stopped basically working a lot and making money and tried to start it back up again. So I had about 8 or 9 months where I wasn't really making a lot of money. And that was stressful, but I did have savings. Things weren't that bad. I was able to go on forbearance for my mortgage for a little bit, so some of the financial burden was taken off and I didn't have to worry too much. I mean, like, it seems kind of crappy to say, but I was a little bit lucky that happened to me during COVID, because there were a lot of programs for people who were struggling during COVID. And I was able to take advantage of quite a few of those. There were probably more that I could have taken advantage of, but honestly, I was exhausted all the time. I developed chronic fatigue. I developed like pretty much permanent brain fog. Like, I don't feel like it's really ever gone away. I believe a symptom, I think that there's something called like post-sepsis disease or something like that. And I believe a lot of those symptoms I do have. I'm not sure if I have exactly post-sepsis because I never actually had like full-blown sepsis. So I don't know if that's a requirement to have post-sepsis disease or whatever it's called. But like low energy, muscle pain, joint pain, extreme joint pain, maybe not necessarily pain, but stiffness. Definitely stiffness. I have been so immobile over the past 6 months that some days I can't open my hands all the way. Some days I can't lift my arms above my head. I mean, even just doing it right now was a little bit of a struggle, but I do feel like I'm getting better. I don't want to say that yet because every time I've said that, something seems to happen. But I mean, yeah, all of that to say that my health took a really negative dive, and due to that, my finances went with it, and my finances have never truly recovered. And that's because when I went back to run ads for Facebook, I got about 2 good months in before Facebook permanently banned my advertising account and my Facebook page and my personal page from ever advertising again. Which I can make a video, and I'm probably going to make a video just on that, because holy crap, like the timing, what a nightmare. Like, I can't believe the moment that I come back and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna make money again. Facebook was like, no, you're not making any money. And of course there is other advertising avenues like TikTok, but I knew Facebook, and I knew Facebook worked because I had seen the success with that before. And that was a really big blow for me personally. Now, that's not to say that I hate working other jobs. Like, I will go work fast food, I'll go work anything else. I think I'm really qualified for a lot of jobs that never seem to want me to work for them for some reason. But I do have a lot of qualifications. So, of course, I've applied for many other jobs. You know, I'm not just going to be like, oh, well, my online shop stopped making money, so I guess I don't make any money anymore. Like, I'm an adult and that's not how it works, unfortunately. But I do what I need to. So if I need to take on another job, I do. That being said, though, it can get really complicated with how bad my health is. And it kind of feels like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place a lot of the times, because the jobs that I can get very easily and would pay fairly okay are all jobs that require an amount of physical labor that I just can't do. And like, I used to be fairly in shape. Like, I used to not get winded when I'd go down or up a flight of stairs. Down, usually you don't get winded. I used to be able to lift things very easily. And now sometimes I struggle to lift my own arm's weight. And because I've been so immobile, I haven't been moving around as much, which has led to some weight gain amongst, you know, some bad eating choices that I've also made. But, you know, moving around or not being able to move around definitely doesn't help. And I've lost a lot of physical strength because of that. Like, I can't open water bottles anymore. and I laugh because if I don't laugh, I'll be sad. It sucks to be 25 and feel like I am 80 years old. Like, it really does. And I don't mean to, like, I'm not trying to garner any pity. That's just where I'm at right now. And hopefully somebody somewhere out there maybe has a similar story and can learn something. Maybe they can teach me something. Or maybe I can serve as a form of inspiration or just like some sort of camaraderie. Maybe somebody who's in a similar situation, let me know, because I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's like rheumatoid arthritis or some sort of autoimmune disease. Don't know what's going on, but I'm hoping that it's not something super serious. But yes, so that catches us up to pretty much about last year. And I had to make the decision to move out of my house because I couldn't make money anymore. At least not enough to continue paying the mortgage and the bills and everything else that I had to pay for. It just wasn't a financially good decision. So I decided to rent my house out. And this, although I would love to make a podcast episode about this next part, because this person deserves all of the crap in the world that could ever come to them. They deserve it all. I am not that much of a hateful person, and it's more of a personal matter anyways. It doesn't really have too much to do with my business. Maybe someday though. But long story short, the first tenant that I got manipulated and lied to me and never paid her rent. So while I was already kind of struggling, it was like, I mean, why did I even leave the house to begin with? I should have just lived there for the next 3 months, because I would have been in the same situation regardless of whether, I mean, I probably would have been better off than had I tried to rent to that person. So, I mean, I guess anybody who's trying to rent their house out, be like quadruple sure that they're a good fit, because I was triple sure. I mean, I went to all the real estate schools. I could technically become a real estate agent. I just didn't have the money to pay for getting signed up to the MLS, like the listing service, which is like $700 a year. So I knew, like, textbook, I knew all the things that you're supposed to look out for and that you're supposed to do. But I lacked like the practical experience. And so unfortunately, I ended up in that situation, and I don't want anybody else to end up in that situation, because that sucks. Eventually, I got her out of the house. I got some new tenants in that are still living there right now. They are absolutely wonderful people, and I love them to death. I'm very, very thankful that I found them. And honestly, I got lucky. They kind of found me, and I got so lucky that they wanted to live in my home. Because if they hadn't, I would have lost it. I would have had to sell the house, or even worse, potential foreclosure. And that was probably the darkest and most depressed I've ever been in my life. Because, like I said earlier, my only goal was to get a house. And while I should have bought a little bit more into, like, I should have considered, oh, well, if I lose my income, I should be able to afford the house even if I lose a lot of income. To be frank, even if I'd bought a much, much smaller house, I still think I would have been in a similar situation, but it probably would have been easier to get through because it wouldn't have been so expensive to pay my mortgage on my own with no income. That was a struggle. Future me coming in here, I remembered a little bit of my story that I think should be added in here for context. So if like there's a jarring cut, it's because I'm like actually cutting and putting this part in. And it's basically just that, like, I started having a ton of shipment issues. A lot of shipments started getting lost. A lot of things started not going so smoothly, and I ended up with a lot of bad reviews. So reviews and getting reviews and like customer interactions is definitely something that can be its own topic and its own super long video all on its own. But the thing that I want to say here about it is, like, most of the people who have bad experiences leave reviews, and not a lot of the people with good reviews actually write them. So if you happen to see reviews on my shop, I have let a few people down for sure, and I'm never going to say that like all of those reviews are fake and people are lying. I definitely don't think that. I think that some people can use a little bit of pointed language. I'm a little sensitive, so pointed language in a lot of the reviews does make me a bit sad, but for the most part, nobody's lying. I can't think of any reviews that people are just flat out lying unless they said that they didn't get their products and then like a week later they arrived and they just never updated the review. I've got a few of those. But for the most part, the people with like really long reviews that are negative, maybe I'll go through them one by one someday and like discuss my side of the story. I don't really think it matters though. My point is that if something bad happens to somebody's order, I will always do my best to help them. And my replies right now are a little bit slow, and that's just so that I can keep up the pace of work that I've got going on without burning myself out, because I've done that a lot in the past. So, excuse me. My replies right now are a little bit slow, but if something goes wrong with your order, I will always be here to help. And I might not make it, like, it might not be the best outcome. Maybe I send out a package, it gets lost, and then I send out a replacement package and that gets lost. That has happened a lot. And it makes me so like sad when the customer is like getting frustrated, and rightfully so. And it just feels like no matter what I try to do, I can't make it better. And it's not like, oh, I don't want them to be mad at me. I don't want them to have a bad experience. Like, I want every customer who shops at my store to have a good experience. So that's why it's really frustrating for me. But just please know that I work very hard to make every order right. And sometimes people leave a bad review and then they never come back to let people know that I help them out. And sometimes I try to help people out and things just get worse. And that doesn't happen very often, but it unfortunately does happen. But I always try my best. So if by chance anybody here listening has a good review, it would be really great if you could share that on my site or on Trustpilot. But like, of course, no pressure. But that would be really nice. Anyways, so I just wanted to come in here and add that little clip, and now we'll get back to what I was saying before. But yeah, I got through it, and I just made my first catch-up mortgage payment like about a month ago, which is a big step for me. And now I am working on getting my Facebook ads back up and running. Somebody reached out to me, and hopefully, I mean, they're very, very nice. They seem like they know exactly what they're doing. And they said that they've had experience with getting their, like, you don't get it unbanned, but I don't know if I should go into detail about exactly how you solve the problem. But regardless, he's trying to help me solve the problem. And that's looking really exciting. I also have all of my new clothes that are about to start dropping. I've got my new collab coming up, which I don't know when this podcast will be released, so I'm not going to say my partner's name quite yet, but she is very well known in Japan. She's very well known in the anime community, and she is an amazing, amazing person, and I'm so excited to announce who it is. I'm so excited for this collab to come out. I've got, of course, these fruit cardigans. I'm wearing one right now. This is the blueberry one. And this isn't like a modeling show, so I'm not going to get up and model it. But if you want to check out any of my designs, any of my pre-orders, any of the things that I'm doing, I mainly do that all on Instagram. Instagram is where I go off. Instagram's where I go crazy. Hopefully, when I have a little bit more of a better setup, I can start filming more TikTok videos. I guess a lot of you might be wondering, why am I transitioning from selling wholesale to now trying to design my own things? And while I could do both, I personally think that I want to get rid of my wholesale stock and just focus on having my own clothing designs being sold. And that's mainly because while selling things that already exist like scratched my entrepreneurial itch, it never scratched my creative itch. And I've always been a creative person, an illustrator. I mean, I studied art in college, so I wanted to create, and the strawberry robe was the closest I ever came to like true original creation, except for if we're not counting the other fruit robes I released, which that's a different story. But I mean, the strawberry robe basically started it all, and I think that I don't think like creation equals success. I was lucky that the thing that I created happened to be very successful. So I'm not like trying to create a bunch of things now to recreate that success. I just genuinely like creating things, and I want to keep doing it. It's a lot of fun. It really fulfills me, and it's really exciting when I post something and everybody else seems excited about it too. Honestly, my Instagram had been really, really dead due to all the medical issues and being depressed and all this stuff, right? I wasn't posting consistently. I wasn't doing those things that everybody says you need to do to keep the algorithm on your side. I just wasn't. And I had no fresh ideas. I had nothing interesting happening in my brain. Like I don't know, I completely lost passion, and I was like, you know what? It's okay. I'll just get like a job and I'll just let my business slowly die. And I can't believe that I said that. That's pretty sad. But I used to think that maybe like 8 months ago. But now, after I got laid off from a job, I mean, I know I'm kind of skipping around here, but I had a job. I got laid off because there's labor issues. I ended up with a lot of free time, unfortunately, like unwillingly. I didn't want to have free time. I wanted to be making money, but I ended up with a lot of free time, and I went to drawing. I started drawing again, which is something that I haven't done in years because, like, once I started going, I just never really stopped. And drawing was never a part of my routine, even though I used to love it so much. I started drawing again, and I started designing clothes, and a few designs here or there I posted. I think the first design I posted really ever after the fruit robes that I had were these fruit cardigans. And I mean, it's basically the same fruit pattern, just slapped onto a cardigan. It's not super revolutionary, and they are much, much cheaper to produce. So I thought that in producing these cardigans, or in releasing these cardigans, I could maybe gain a little bit more traction, and slowly dig myself out of the hole that I fell in, or I jumped in, or whatever we want to say. And I got a considerable amount of likes. I mean, up until that point, I had been trying to boost my engagement by posting other people's reels because I saw another business doing that. and it was working very well for them. So I gave it a shot, but I just never liked posting content that wasn't my own. Even if it got me a little bit of engagement, people weren't sticking around. People weren't following. So when I posted these cardigans and I got like 1,500 likes, that was a big deal for me. Even though my account has over 100,000 followers, that was still a really big deal for me because I hadn't seen any like amount on a lot of posts of my own before that. And it gave me a little bit of that push. But the thing that really gave me a lot of push was when I uploaded my strawberry summer dress design. And that's not even one of the best designs that I've posted at this point as far as like count goes. But I think I got 3,000 pretty quickly on that post, and I realized, like, as much fun as the strawberry robe is, people are probably pretty tired of seeing it, and people want to see the new things that I come up with. And people are excited about the things that I have to make and the things that like come out of my brain. People like that stuff, and it gave me a lot of confidence. So a lot of the reason that I have been able to feel good enough about posting my designs and feel a lot less depressed has frankly been because of a lot of you. I mean, if you're a longtime follower or if you're just a follower of mine on Instagram, you guys really don't know how much that meant to me. It's been rough. I'm not gonna cry, I swear. I swear. But it's been really rough the past few years. So having people support something original that I created was so exciting. So I kept going. And I started seeing things in movies that like I was like, oh, that fabric looks really cool, and I love the way that dress moves. And I started like studying the different ways that dresses are made. I started looking at trends that were going on. And one night, which is the dress that I'm the most excited about, I was sleeping, and I think like at 5 a.m. or something, I stirred in my sleep, and this image of this mushroom dress popped up into my head. And I was still like probably 80% asleep, but I knew in my asleep brain that if I didn't wake up enough to remember this dress, it would be the biggest mistake of my life. And that sounds a little dramatic, but that is legit how I felt. I was like, you have to wake up, you have to get up at least enough to remember this dress or write it down on your phone or something. And I woke myself up. It's like the closest thing I've ever had to a lucid dream. I don't know if it counts, but yeah, so I woke myself up enough. I remembered the dress, and the next day I immediately started drawing it when I was awake and after I'd fed myself and such. And my partner at the time, who is still my partner now, he came home from work and he looked at the screen and saw what I was drawing. And although he's always been supportive and always said that the stuff I make is super cool and he loves it, this time he was like, this is the best thing you've ever made. This is genius. This is amazing. And this is going to sell like crazy. Everyone is going to love this. And he's not an expert on e-commerce. He's not an expert on fashion. But just hearing that validation, because my dream brain thought that this was amazing. My awake brain thought that this was amazing. And now, like, I'm getting external validation. It felt really good. And lo and behold, I posted, and it is the best performing post that I've ever had without running ads ever in my life. It went viral all on its own. It didn't need any ads to go viral. I think the strawberry dress post that I made maybe had 12,000 likes way back in the day. This post is now, right now, I believe it is at 30,000 likes. So, whew. So that is really exciting. A sample is being made. And from here, where I intend to go is I intend to transition out of wholesale. Most of my wholesale stuff is still like on clearance, on like 30 to 70% off. So if you guys could go buy some of that stuff and clear out my stock, if you want anything, please do. But from here, I'm going to start opening pre-orders, and it's scary because I feel like there's a part of me that nags me in my head saying, well, if these pre-orders don't do good, People can like a post as much as they want. That doesn't mean that they're going to buy anything. So I am frankly anxious and I am worried about it, but I am also quite optimistic and positive and excited to see where it goes. And I think what's going to end up happening is that I'm going to be surprised at how many people end up purchasing something that I make. And I think I just need to believe in myself a little bit more. So that's where we're at. I do intend to do these podcasts on a lot more topics. If you guys have anything specific that you want to hear about, please let me know. I've got a few more planned. Like I said, I'm going to do one on the strawberry robe. I'm going to do one on drop shipping. I'll probably end up doing one on like toxic shop owner culture that I've encountered where, I don't know, quote unquote, right? Like, I don't even know if that's a thing, but I've just noticed that a lot of other shop owners are really mean. And if you guys have seen my Instagram stories lately, you'll know what I'm talking about, but not even just that. I've had a lot of experiences with other shop owners that really, it's kind of shocking. I just don't know why so many shop owners are so strange. Of course, there are so many good people out there. Maybe I've just been unlucky in that department where I haven't really met a lot of them, but there's always time for that in the future. And I will be releasing all of the pre-order information that I have on Instagram first, and then probably TikTok and my website and things like that. So if you're following me on Instagram, you will always know what's happening. I don't know which one at this point in time is going to be next, but it is going to be either the fruit cardigans or the cow, like with the heart hole, the cow sets with the fuzzy skirts. So it's going to be one of those two. And then after that, who knows? And my goal from now on, I think I have a little bit more time just to add a few things about the podcast. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it. This podcast has just been on my life and my business's experience, getting from where I started to where I am now. And I hope you guys found it interesting. I hope that maybe you were able to learn something from it. I realized recently that I really, really like talking, like a lot, but I don't want to make a bunch of stories where I just talk for a long time, because like you guys don't necessarily sign up for that. You want like quick, easy, good feel stories. So this is going to be definitely my creative outlet for like sharing things that I want to say. And I'm very excited about it because honestly, I've looked at a lot of other creators and I've watched like their like shop update vlogs and things like that. And they're just fun to like turn on in the background while you're drawing or while you're doing something else. And I hope that my podcast can be the same thing. And I hope to also start branching out into other content. But if there's one thing I've learned about myself, it's that I kind of need to take things slow so I don't overwhelm myself, because then I will quit. So you can also expect me to be more organized as time goes on, especially when I kind of get used to talking into a microphone and staring at myself. That's not something I'm very used to. So while in this podcast, kind of looking back at the past 40 or so minutes I've been talking, I think that I've jumped around a little bit. Hopefully I've made some coherent sense, and hopefully you guys were able to understand my story. Please ask me any questions if you have them. I would love to have an episode or something where I just answer questions, because my goal is to be a business owner and a creator that everybody can be proud of, and that my fans love, and that they respect, and somebody who is very transparent and honest about the business. I think that, especially like I mentioned earlier with my experience with other shop owners, I think that that is something that is really missing. I think that a lot of shop owners have a lot of pride, and I think they're very mean and like jealous of other people really easily. And that's not what I want to be at all. So yeah, I don't really have a plan for exactly what the next episode is going to be, but I will film it when I film it, and I will get to it when I get to it, and I am excited to continue sharing my thoughts and my feelings and my experience to anybody who is interested and willing to listen. So thank you guys so much for watching this. If you stuck until the very end, thank you. I mean, thank you to everybody who was here. Without the people watching, and without the people liking, and without the people engaging with my content, I wouldn't be here. So, I mean, and especially to anybody who's made purchases, like, thank you guys too so much. Without you guys, I wouldn't be here. And my customers are so important to me. My fans are so important to me. And I hope that you will continue to support me. I will continue to do my best.